I mean, would you mind introducing, I think I've asked you this before, if you'd mind introducing yourself for my audience, if that's okay, please.
Of course. My name is Gabriela Handal. I am a draftsman, and I am also the host of the podcast, A Conversation About Art, which you can find on YouTube, and I think that's it.
It's a very humble way to introduce yourself. You're incredibly skilled draftsman, and I'm a big fan, and I do love seeing your work, and especially the most recent work is, I mean, not especially, I've always loved your work, but I love seeing your most recent work as well, because you've just done a lovely portrait based on a sculpture, but obviously modified to an extent. Can you talk about that a little bit for anyone who doesn't know? And I'll show images on top of your...
Oh, for sure. Yes. And, you know, it's funny because I was kind of hoping that you would like ask about that. Because yeah, I guess, you know, maybe you can tell me also what you think about that, about the relationship between the reference and the artist's finished work, because I think that's really, really interesting. And, you know, seeing the original reference versus the end result is like, it's always interesting to me. You know, there's, at the same time, there's other people, you know, other artists just want nothing to do with anyone knowing their reference. And I think kind of tangential, sort of, but maybe not so much. I don't know if you remember the Contemporary Magazine YouTube channel that I sent you a while ago.
Yeah.
That has several videos about this stuff. I mean, that in there, the guy that talks is like, no, don't talk about your process or anything like that, because it's like a magician revealing the trick or something, and like the mystery, and somehow that belittles the work or something, you know. So like, I mean, I'm not aware of like a explicit debate about that subject, but I really enjoy it. So it's like, that's the second video of that, what's going to be an ongoing series, where I compare my reference with my finished drawing. So the reference is the sculpture of, I don't remember the name of the sculpture, but the character is called Clytie, who is a character from Greek mythology, and she is a character who is in love with Helios, the sun god, and some Greek tragedy happens between the two of them, and she ends up becoming a flower. And the flower that she turns into is a heliotrope, and it's a flower that the flower face follows the sun as it goes through the sky, and so it's a heliotrope, because even though whatever happened, she is still in love with the sun god. So then she just watches every day as he goes by across the sky. And it's like this weird tragedy, romantic tragedy. Anyway, George Frederick Watts made a sculpture of that. And I referenced the sculpture for my drawing, and yeah, I didn't copy this sculpture, but it was my reference. I kept the pose. I guess I could, you know, you're going to put up images and stuff, but I mean, if you watch the video that I made about the subject, but I made a video, I think I said that already, comparing the two, and thoroughly going about over each thing that I kept versus what I changed. Because, for example, the sculpture's chest and her breasts are just like ridiculous in the sculpture. I don't know why. I don't really know why, but I feel like it's kind of common in sculpture, because there's this sculpture from like sometime in the Renaissance, I don't know when or by who, but it's a reclining sculpture. The breasts are just terrible, because they're like super far apart, and they just don't look like breasts. They look like somebody shoved a bunch of wrinkled paper under the skin. It's terrible. It's really bad. And I don't know. The thing, you know, the sculpture's breasts are not that bad, but they're not good. They look like silicone implants. And, you know, the portrait is kind of idealized, and the sculpture is kind of on a pedestal type thing. And, you know, there's that as well, because I don't want to draw the picture of the sculpture, you know. So, and I'm also not drawing the sculpture from life, you know, like I don't have the sculpture in person, and if I was, I might draw the little pedestal thing on which it is, but I'm not. So I wanted to keep the pose, and I wanted to keep kind of like the whole idea of her being in this moment of being transformed into the flower, which is what the sculpture is supposed to be depicting. but then I had to do away with that pedestal thing. And so I did, and I invented on the portrait a little bit. I took pictures of my head to help me, because the portrait's forehead is like super low. It's like down to here. It's like kind of crazy. I don't know why. I mean, I think that's supposed to be whatever. The thing is that my forehead is higher, so I was able to use that information for my drawing, and I used my eyebrows, which I like better, the shape, and I mean this type of stuff, you know. So okay, that was a long time talking.
No, that was great. I really love the artistic license you've taken with the reference, because I feel there's a couple of things where when you talk about what's my view on reference and how artists use it.
Yes.
I've been told by my brother, I'll be, explicit. He said, don't worry about being super accurate when you're painting something or drawing something, because no one's going to see the reference. Which I think is true, especially if you're putting work in a gallery, you don't put a reference next to it. But I think that gives artists a little bit of an insecurity about how accurate they're able to depict something. And then I start to think about, my true feelings are that if an artist is limited by what the reference gives them, then they're not able to create something more personal and individual and inject creativity into it. And instead they're waiting to be fed information. And I feel like that can be a weakness for artists. Of course, it'll be a preference to some extent, but I really appreciate when artists take liberties which photographs can't take, for example. There's a guest who I interviewed last year called Gino Santamaria. He's a painter, and he said that a friend of his saw him painting these trees that were equilateral distance, and his friend put his hand on his shoulder and he said, "Gino, I give you permission to change the trees. You can move them to make two go closer together so that they're not looking so odd in these three spaces." And he said that just broke him free. And he said, all of a sudden now I can change what I'm seeing and make it mine. And that was really humorous to me, because I thought, like, we do create our own box which we sit in. And I love seeing how you take a reference and then you'll say, no, I'm going to use this other reference as well. I think that's far more professional and interesting than to say, this is the reference and this is my drawing and look at how close it is to the reference. It's so that's
yeah, for sure. No, I like that. And I also like when the finished work is kind of independent from the reference, in the sense that, I don't know if you've heard other artists saying that's what it looked like in the reference. When you point out something that looks weird in the drawing. Right? And it's like, don't blame your reference for your shortcomings. Right? So then it's like, for example, I saw that really, I mean, I heard that often in drawing class. When, people are, a person is having a difficult time drawing something from the model, and they're like, oh, but that's what it looks like in the reference. And it's like, if it works in the reference, that means you can make it work in your drawing. It's like, use the reference as an excuse. That means you're lacking skill. It means you're not working hard enough. It's like, it means that you're not trying to resolve the issue in your drawing. And it's like, again, if it works in the reference, that means that you should be able, because it's like, every mark that the artist makes on the work, or, drawing, painting, sculpture, whatever, it's a responsibility of the artist, because the artist chooses to make the mark. So then it's like, you can't go blaming something that is complete of your drawing on something other than yourself, because you're the one that's making the marks that are going to end up making the drawing. So yeah, that's
it almost falls under, do you agree? I think it almost falls under design, because my brother said to me, if things look wrong or they look weird or uncomfortable when there's, slight bit of a chin or something where it's kind of just makes it weird for a life drawing where you're trying to render it accurately. He said, design it, serve the drawing, not the reality. He said, nobody's going to applaud the accuracy. They want to see a successful piece that you've made. So you want to kind of, as much as my brother said, no one will see the reference. it's kind of, a double-edged sword where you should have that knowledge to design your work beyond what the reference will offer.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think that can also be considered a compositional decision because for example, it's like if I have whatever drawing it is, like the Clyde drawing, it's like if she ends up like too much to the right, for example, then that's gonna look bad, and that's also a design decision. It's like I can't read that way because I know it's like I can see that it looks bad. So then yeah, I think we do agree. I think that is definitely to what you and your brother are saying, that it's like if the drawing that you're making is not looking right, then that means that that either take a liberty or work on it or fix it or try something different or whatever it is to make it look right.
Yeah.
And look right is a little vague because it's kind of like an instinct thing that I kind of don't think needs honing necessarily because it's so immediate. I think it's similar to kind of like the pattern recognition that everyone has built in by default because we have eyes and a brain and we have evolved just with all of this stuff. And so we know when something is off. It's like, that's why an obese person is just like, that person is basically deformed. And it's like if somebody has, because they become deformed, I mean, their proportions go out of whack, obviously, because they have like this additional mass on them. So then they're no longer within what is healthy, therefore proportional. You see what I'm saying? So then it's like if somebody has, like occasionally I've seen people that have short arms for whatever congenital reason, I don't know. And it's immediate. It's like you immediately notice that there's something there, some kind of an issue there. And it's like, that, you don't have to know human design or whatever, or proportions or human proportions or like physical human proportions. You don't have to know that to know there's something wrong there. So then that is the same kind of design filter that is just there every time we are looking at something that kind of tells you this doesn't look right. So then that's the doesn't look right. The arms are too short because your elbows are like halfway up or something,
Yeah. For anyone who's watching and thinking, why are you saying about, I'll give another example because I agree with you. There's a life model who goes to this class that I've started teaching, and she's the perfect life model, the perfect size. But, I say but, it's kind of but. Her neck is unusually long, and it's elegant,
nice,
and beautiful, but it makes you question the proportions because necks aren't normally that long, and it's elegant, it's beautiful, but it's almost Botticelli like, serpentine long neck. And she was amazingly still. She'd even fall asleep in the perfect pose and then wake up and apologize, and we'd say, no, it was perfect, I'm glad. And but yeah, a great model. But because the neck's long, when you're trying to teach people proportion, that can be strange to tell people you've got the neck right, it just looks longer because you're measuring and rendering that, and maybe you've mismeasured something else. But so it's an unusual thing with proportion. You're trying to hone your eye to what looks natural and what works. And that's why you have idealized proportions for artists. You always want to draw someone athletic or something because it shows the muscles and it can really emphasize a more dynamic thing of twisting or pulling or whatever it is. And that can be what's got the most impact for the art. Now, I have said on the episode of your podcast that I was the guest, I did say that there are people who are especially heavy, probably would come under obese, in the town where I live, and I want to draw them, but I don't have a good way of saying to them to be a model because of their size, because I know they'll be self-conscious, and they kind of hold it well. Some people who lose weight look weird when they lose weight because all of that skin is stretched, and so when you
if they were heavy enough,
there's no way of losing that weight and looking natural because it's too much. But yeah, so there's a couple of people who I know in town, and my town where I live is especially mutant looking sometimes. There are, oops, that was me. Did you see that? Can you see that? I didn't know
Yeah.
Zoom did that. Sorry. Anyway, there are it's been noticed by people who don't live in this town where I am that it's kind of like Star Wars background characters when you're just people watching in the town where I am, because the shapes and sizes and the way people walk, it's very strange, very unusual town. So that's
Interesting.
where I found people who I thought I kind of want to draw them because I like cartoon design, you know, so I like the idea of having like kind of Simpsons characters or something, but based on real people, you know.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change what you've said. I completely agree with what you've said, and I think. Do you know Jeff Watts, the artist? He's a teacher as well. You know who he is?
Jeff Watts.
Yeah, he's got the Watts Atelier, which Stanislav Prokopenko talks about and went to. You know, Stan Prokopenko, the Proko.
I know that. I know that one. Yeah.
Well, he
Does
studied under
he?
Jeff
Yeah.
Watts. Jeff Watts is amazing. You'd love his channel. I recommend. In fact, I'll send you a video by him.
Yeah, do it.
He takes his students' artwork, which is beautiful life drawing, and he just tears it apart because he understands what's underneath the skin and the students don't. So they've done this beautiful rendering, which I can't see the difference. And then he says, well, the hip would be dislocated if this were accurate, and things like that, where I'm just thinking, wow, I should have noticed that. But that's knowledge over experience, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's someone who, what was my point in bringing him up? I think it was because, yeah, that's the ideal, is to be able to know something so ingrained where things should be that you can identify where things are wrong, or you can render things that the light doesn't necessarily serve if the lighting on the model isn't as good or clear as you'd like it to be. If your knowledge of that anatomy is that that well informed, then you can render it that much better. Sorry, I've got a bit of indigestion. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm aiming for, is to have this trained eye, and I don't have the knowledge yet. And I marvel at what you do, because you have this way of subtly indicating what's underneath the skin, and it's really this beautiful balance of looking real and yet removed so it's stylized. Like, I love how you do hair. You've got a real style with doing hair where it's gradiated, and it's not like you're trying to show, follicles or kind of like light that interacts with hair naturally. It's very specifically your style, which is unexpected, and I love it. I think it's great.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Alphonse Mucha. I don't know how you pronounce that.
I say,
and for Cloudy, yeah, okay. Yeah, for the Cloudy drawing, I totally went not exactly like him, because his is, of course, it's his language, but I was definitely doing like a flowy hair, and I mean the sculpture has like this wavy flowy curl hair, so I definitely did that. I like divided it into sections based on the sculpture, and then did a gradation of the color from the back to the front, because in the back it's darker and then it gets lighter in the front, which I also liked, because it's kind of as though she's looking at the sun, and the sun is in front of her face. I mean, generally in the front of her face, and so like the back of her head would be darker for that. And yeah, but I mean, other times I definitely like what is arguably more realistic hair. But it's still unnatural in like how dense it is.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it just like thick, dense hair that you can't see the skull, like the scalp is cool. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that sort of stuff, like that is also kind of like a marker for health and fertility. It's like a thick, lustrous hair. So then that's probably why we favor it. I mean, humans in general, and so like that's probably why I exaggerated in the drawings, and people and the characters look like they have a healthy head of hair on there. And I mean, in those occasions when I do want to talk a bit more about what is quote unquote more realistic hair, I will do like an individual strand here and there, because that's kind of how it looks like in real life. And so so then that kind of leans more towards the kind of naturalistic, realistic side, sort of. Yes.
So you're not, let me think. Are you kind of using instinct to deviate from reference, or are you contemplating it and then applying the thought? Because I'm curious, at what point do you decide the reference doesn't serve the image, or it's time to deviate from what the sculpture is going to offer? When does that happen?
It happens as the drawing advances. I don't plan things I don't plan things ahead of time. Because, for example, with the Clyde drawing, I just started with like a rough outline of the sculpture, and then I mean, you know, like a contour, like a geometrical kind of looking contour, and I started cutting into it, like placing stuff. But I didn't necessarily decide right from the beginning that I didn't want to draw that portrait. When I was getting to that, you know, the portrait from the sculpture, when I was getting there, I was like, I don't really care for that. I don't really care for that portrait, you know, or like, because I mean, I had already drawn it, like I sketched it on my drawing. And then I was like, there's so much information missing, because I like, again, I didn't want my drawing to be the sculpture. So like the sculpture has I think that sculpture, the reference that I use is that I used is the plaster version. And so like the eye doesn't have an iris or a pupil, like not even in the sculpture style, you know, when they do like the David eyeball, Michelangelo's David eyeball. Not even like that. So I was like, I definitely want her to have iris and a pupil, and I definitely want her to have real eyebrows, and like the eyebrows in the sculpture are just barely symbols of eyebrows. So when I started working on the portrait, I was like, I'm missing all of this information that I want to have available to me. And like the mouth, because like, again, on the mouth, for example, the plaster is one color. I mean, it has discoloration, but it's like the discoloration that happens on plaster with time and being manipulated, which is not the same type of discoloration that skin has. So then that's when I was like, I'm going to have to take pictures of myself to have some kind of information of how, because, okay, so you have the skin, and you have like the skin of the, and then you have like the transition, like the change of skin color from the vermilion border, which is like the more red powder, the red part of the mouth, versus the edges of it. And so like on the within the mouth, the part where the skin is very thin and it looks more red, it's typically a little bit different than the skin of the rest of the face. That, you know, it behaves differently under whatever lights situation it is, you know. So then I did not have that information with the picture of the sculpture, but I had it with the picture that I took of myself. And so I was able to populate the drawing with that information thanks to the picture that I took. And I think kind of like blending the two. I mean, I would say that it maybe takes practice, and I mean, it probably does. But at the same time, I think kind of like the instinctive desire for, or not the desire, or the fact that we're looking for a pattern of something that looks in a certain way, or like what we were saying earlier, that looks right. I think that is what kind of drives the desire to make changes or to fill information that isn't in the original reference in the drawing. Because like when I look at the drawing, that information is missing, and it's like, it just feels weird to look at it, you know? Like, for example, when I was drawing her chest, the nipples in the sculpture, they're not bad, but they're not explicit, like they're not clear, because like, again, because there's no change in color, because like the nipple and the areola is different. I mean, that's this of course applies to both men and women, is different from the rest of the chest. So then I didn't have that information. It's like the information on the sculpture is really shadowy, even though it is insinuated there, you know. But then I didn't have the information of how it looks when you have the change of color of the change of tissue from skin to areola to nipple. Like, I didn't have that information. And so like I made the sketch in my drawing, closer to the sculpture of the breast, the sketch closer to the sculptures in my drawing, and I was like, I don't care for the way this looks. I don't like it. It's weird. So then at that point, I was like, all right, I need reference photographs of this. I don't know how to look for that on this pose on the internet. I don't know. So then I just took pictures of myself, and then I used that information to populate the drawing, kind of. And that helped me to just make them look natural. And so then I drew on them until they looked right. And you know, like, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it won't have the texture, will it, on the sculpture itself? It will lack texture in those areas where, obviously, a photo reference or anything that isn't sculptural, which is more, you know, made of flesh and you know, you've got actual skin to base it off of, you'll have those nuances that sculpture won't offer.
Yeah, and that's what I'm used about also in the video that I made on the reference versus artwork. And it's like, you can, I mean, the sculpture can provide a lot of information on their sculpture, but you know, you can only do so much at the same time. It's like, it really depends on how precious, it's like, it really depends on what the sculptor wants to tell you on the image. You know, George Frederick Watts thought it was enough with the information he provided in his sculpture. He didn't feel it necessary to go further than, because it's like, you know, sometimes it depends on the breast, of course, on the chest or whatever. It depends. But sometimes on the edge of the areola, you have teeny little bumps sometimes, you know, for example. Yeah. Sometimes like sometimes the flat top of the nipple itself has like wrinkly, not wrinkles exactly, but there's a texture there as well. There's discoloration there as well too. But it's like, how close are you looking at that titty, you know?
Yeah. It's so then it's like a dimple, isn't it? Almost
yeah, exactly.
Just be like one, because I've noticed on well-rendered drawings where you can get real humanity, and it's like you said, how much do you actually want to render specific details over others? Because then it's open to analysis about what you focus on, what you emphasize, and what that says about the subject to the audience and about yourself, really.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I wasn't able to find that much information about the sculpture, just because trying to learn certain things is kind of frustrating sometimes. But supposedly Frederick Watts was kind of just trying to convey the moment in which it's like, not before she's the flower or when she is the flower, but like the moment when she is becoming the flower. So it's like an in-between. So then, you know, maybe he didn't think the detail of the nipple was important. And I mean, I agree. Because it's like, you know, like, I didn't go into necessarily as much detail as I physically could with the nipples in my drawing either, because it's like, I just wanted them to look right. I wanted them to look natural. I wanted them to look accurate, because then that's the other thing. It's like, it's like, if I have a drawing of a person that is about this big, it's like, just how much detail is it physically possible for me to see? Right. So then there's also that. And then that's arguably like a Leonardo da Vinci sort of thing. That it's like, what does the atmosphere look like the farther you get from the thing? It starts looking hazy, and it starts looking, you know, because of all of the air that's in between. So then it's like, it's unrealistic if you start making super detailed far away. Your eye does not see that. That's not what it looks like when you're looking at it, you know? So then it's like a mixture of like, does it look right? It's like, you know, the thing that we were talking about, does it look right, versus what is realistically what is possible to look at this point when something is this size, this distance, like something like that, you know?
Yeah. Aside from the sculpture, which I think, am I right in thinking it's the first sculpture you've drawn? You've not drawn a sculpture before, have you? No?
No, I don't know. I don't remember. I might have, but I mean, I've sketched. I don't know if that counts. I mean, I've sketched sculptures at the Met.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't remember seeing it. But anyway, so aside from that, your other recent drawing was it Leo? Did you call the lion drawing that you did?
Oh, I called him. Yeah, that's funny. That's my husband's fault because he would be like, "Hey, are you drawing Leono?" Or then he would call him, "Are you drawing Leonardo?" Like every time he would say a different lion related.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's just the lion drawing.
Okay, all right.
I'm easily amused. Yes.
Because that was another interesting one where you'd shown how you deviated from the reference, which was really good because it showed the limitations of the reference and the injection of your own rendering and preference beyond that point.
Yes, that's and I think you'd watch that video, because that's actually another thing about looking at a reference that's a photograph, because the camera, because that was the case with that drawing, with the lion drawing. I was using a photograph. I mean, it's the same with the reference that I used for Clyde as well, because it's a picture of the sculpture. So what happens is that the camera has already made some decisions on its own. And it's like, if you want to think that's sentience or whatever, then that's a whole class other thing. The thing is that you're not looking at the thing directly with your eyes. Okay, so then there's a filter in between. So meaning that the thing that you would otherwise be looking at with your eyes has been filtered through something. Meaning that you're just not looking at certain things as you would see them yourself. So for example, in the case of the drawing, of the lion drawing, for example, his eyes, where there was something about his eyes, I don't remember right now. The pupils were much bigger than I drew them, and there was like the lid of one eye came lower, so like one of the pupils was kind of cut off by the top lid of one of the eyes, and I was like, unless I copy this photograph exactly, that's not going to work. Or at least it's not going to work for me. And so like so like that's another decision that a person makes when you're using a photographic reference. It's like, do I go hyper realistic and just copy the photograph exactly, or I actually make a work of art? Right? It's because that is a deliberate, conscious decision that the artist makes. And it's like, if you're going, I don't remember if you and I have talked about this specifically, but it's like, if you're going the hyperrealism route, you're not speaking in your own language. You're just reproducing a photograph exactly. And so like, it's not that hyperrealism doesn't have its place, because it does. And I think its place is for when you're starting out, when you're an amateur artist, and you're trying to polish your scene skill. And so it's like, yeah, I want to make this knife as exactly as possible as this knife. Yeah. And so like, that's how you practice your accuracy with, not just with your eyes, because you can look at your drawing and you can look at the reference and see if your drawing is close enough, accurate enough to the reference, and your hand as well. So so I think it works as a tool for that. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think hyperrealism is necessary as part of that, but it can, I try to be devil's advocate sometimes. It's good practice, it's like, why would somebody want to do this? And I think that's what I can think of in favor of hyperrealism. I don't think it's a visual language. I don't think it's a style, quote unquote. If anything, it's a cop-out from making an actual work of art, in my opinion.
I'm sure people will be screaming at the screen, but I completely agree with you. So
yeah,
I'm sorry if this is frustrating to you, but I'm completely with you on this. I think this is speaking my language. I find, hyperrealism to be a bit of a weakness on behalf of the person who's doing. I mean, as much as it's obviously hard to do to the extent of discipline and meticulous, but it's just lacking things which I think are strengths of someone who's taking the art seriously and really trying to say something, that's all stripped away for hyperrealism. I really don't find that to be engaging intellectually or creatively, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And also the other thing is that, and I did mention this in the video of Heidi, that it's like the whole point, photograph is its own medium.
Mm.
Drawing or painting is its own medium. They're different mediums.
Yeah.
So then it's like, I don't need to try to be doing what photography is doing with my drawing.
Mm.
The photograph already did it.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to do with my drawing what the camera cannot do, which is make a drawing. So make a drawing or a painting, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another thing. It's like, I have to think about it more. I have to think about it more still, because I'm not, like, again, I'm not against hyperrealism. I just don't think, I think, like, it's not a visual language. It's not a style. It's, you're not making a work of art, even though it has what is typically considered, or, even what I typically consider part of making a work of art, which is, like that dedication, paying attention, you making the thing, you're being very precious and thoughtful, this type of stuff. I don't think it has the same gusto in it or something as a work of art, where you're kind of letting your artist hand come through. It's like your own calligraphy coming through,
Yeah.
And I have to think about it more, because I think that part specifically, because, the point, and I mean, hyperrealism is not the only place where painterliness, quote unquote, is removed from the finished work. It's like there's very old medieval paintings or Renaissance paintings are very smooth. It's like you do not see the brushstrokes. But that's also not strictly the point. It's like it doesn't have to be painterly for it to be a work of art. It's like it's something else. It's a combination of things. So it's like I have to think about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I
mean, this relates to what I said to you before we started recording about, I don't know whether to bring up my experience watching one of your recent podcast episodes. I'll definitely put a link of your podcast in the description. Of course, I'll do that anyway, but I really want people to watch it, because every time I watch your podcast, I enjoy it. And a couple of times I enjoy it and I'm so engaged that I'm frustrated by the end, because I want to contribute to the conversation, because it really gets into the meat of opinion and passing out what is and what is not. And I love that. I think that you've got a real kind of body of kind of work of these interviews and these. I mean, I was wondering, I was driving today, I went to go and see a friend who's a photographer, and I was driving back thinking about your conversations about art and whether, because this is something I wanted to ask you. That's what I was thinking. So I was driving in the car, I was thinking, I see you making notes when people are talking, and I'm wondering whether you're writing down the specific words as some kind of living document of, this is a description of beauty, or this is a description of art, or this is just a way for them to communicate a concept. And what is it you're writing down? Is it specific things, or is it just in the moment to make sure you get the wording accurate? What is it?
Yeah, sometimes I write down specific words if I want to know why they used a specific word, or like a specific phrase to describe something, and I want to be like, why did you use that word specifically? Because in the moment this strikes me as weird. And sometimes I write down a word because I like the word. More recently, I've been writing down, because I use a stopwatch that I have. I use a stopwatch on my phone, to see how long we're taking. But I also use it to write down when I ask what is art, so that then I don't have to hear the entire thing again, unless I wanted to, because sometimes I do. But if I don't want to listen to the entire episode, when I'm making the timestamps, so I'll write down when I ask what is art, what is beauty, and this type of stuff, like the intro, the outro, this type of stuff. And sometimes I do try to take notes so that I can ask additional questions later if they said something. I mean, I'm not very good at taking notes. Like, I wasn't very good at taking notes in school and stuff, for example. because I don't really know how people do it. I have no idea. Like, nobody taught me. I don't know how you do it. So I just write stuff down and hope for the best, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good though, because I mean, I must admit, I do reflect quite a lot on how I do have some regrets about how I approached talking to you when I was on your podcast, because I've got so much respect for you and for your podcast, and because it's academics, I was careful about making definitive statements. And then out of frustration afterwards, after watching the podcast and saying it was great, wasn't that bad, and then but to a friend I said I really hedged every answer when I have opinions, where instead I'd put placeholder concessions and say, well, beauty could be this, or art is apparently this, and I'm not sure. And then I was on the phone to a friend saying, my actual opinion is you could put a whole load of stuff into a glass cabinet saying, this isn't art, this is crap. This is crap for this reason. This is, completely invalid for this reason. It shouldn't be considered. It should be disrespected. It should be illegitimate in some cases. And I think I've talked to you about some of these, maybe even on that episode. But I have strong opinions where I think I could be talked out of this. I don't know. But at the moment, I discussed it with my photographer friend today, and his mouth was agape. The things which I said to him, this is fine art from the last 30, maybe even 50 years. And I don't know how to explain it. It's just bizarre. It's the type of thing I'd expect to see in an art film or just a weird independent film, which I would accept. Whereas to watch it as fine art, and then especially in the UK, to see certain artists be dismissed as illustrators and not fine artists, increases my frustration and my, I suppose, my dismissal of the academia of the UK, because it seems to be quite pretentious, and I don't know, it's kind of boxing itself in by saying this is what fine art is, and it kind of sets this platform for fine art. Then it's saying Rembrandt and Da Vinci, that's more illustration, and it just really, infuriates me. And then so I don't have strong enough opinions on your podcast. This is just my podcast, so my audience can hear me rant and rave and say, this is my opinion, and it's fine. But I definitely want to encourage people to check out your podcast, because it's different, and they'll see why I've got so much reverence for what you do, because I think you've kind of laid out boundaries and you have a very considered conversation. Whereas I want to have a chat, because, this is your third time on my channel. I want you to be on every series of my pod. This is the third series, and this is your third appearance. And I'd love you to be on the channel when it's not even a podcast, just discussing a piece, and we'll, have a piece and show a video, because you're such a great feature on the channel anyway to come on. So
thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a real treat always. But I don't know if I've told you, I've got another podcast, a painting one. I don't know if I told you this, with a co-host. Yeah. And I've now, for several reasons, a bit of behind the scenes, every guest has to be given 2 warnings now because of what's happened with some guests. Not many. There's only been a couple of guests where there's been problems. The first thing I say to guests is, when I start recording, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Are you comfortable with that? I will have said that to you when I first had you on the podcast, because one person, when I asked them to introduce themselves, just said no. And I wasn't ready for that. I was like, can you introduce yourself for the audience? And they said, no. So I was like, okay, I'm going to edit all this out. Let's just talk for a minute so that you understand why I'm getting you to introduce yourself. So I got them comfortable and they introduced themselves. That's the first reason why the first warning for guests. The other one, which is a new one, is that I've now got to tell guests that this is a video podcast. The video will be published. Are you comfortable with the video? Even though it's on Zoom and they're showing us things like going, oh, look at this. We've had a guest complain saying, I didn't know this was a video podcast. So now every guest has to be told, this is a video podcast. Are you comfortable having the video published? I would have never thought that would have never dawned on me if it weren't for a couple of problems. Not problems, but things which I didn't expect. And the podcast has already been published. And someone not happy that it was published. And the last thing we want is for a guest to be uncomfortable in any way after the fact. You want people to feel celebrated and kind of, whatever. So that's something which has changed as far as my experience with it. But otherwise, I've just published, right? This is not published. Actually, it's going to be soon. I don't know when this is going up. To be honest, I think I might have to take a break. Not now. I mean, my podcast has been going up every week. This might be the first episode after a bit of a break, because what I'm going to do is do 4 episodes, and I've just edited and uploaded the 4th, but it hasn't gone live yet. It's scheduled. And what happened is, because I've not been booking guests, because I've got a painting podcast, I'm now working for a gallery, and I've been too busy to do just YouTube videos. So what I think I'm going to do is have a break, upload this when I've got 3 other guests recorded, and that'll be a block of 4, and then there'll be a block, because I do 24 per season. And so that's my plan, is to kind of space them out throughout the year. The reason I'm saying that is because the last one that I've just edited is a friend of mine. So similar to yourself, I'm far more casual and chatty. Usually won't talk for this long, because he's a friend of mine, the guy who I went to see today, the photographer. But we have a really serious talk. And I think it's because he's the first person who I know who's been on my channel who's not a painter, drawer, artist. You know what I mean? So I put him on the channel. Then again, I did have a filmmaker. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I've known him most of my life, basically, but he's older than me. He's my brother's age, my brother's friend. We have this serious talk about landscape photography versus landscape painting, and what's important and what you should consider. He's literally just been and helped me today with how to calibrate my camera so that I'm going to get the most out of it, because I've been using it completely wrong, because I know nothing about it. So he's been and helped me today. It's amazing what I've figured out my camera can do. Just from him going, this turns this way and you press this and does that. And, you know, a real business-minded kind of guy. Yeah, don't mess about with that. Get this down. There we go. Done. Great guy. You'd love him. He's really funny. But yeah, so that's why my approach to podcasting is very different with you now than with you the first time you came on. Or and it's like the last time I had you on, we talked mainly about your diet, which I thought was really interesting.
Yes.
So, like I said, every year I could have you come on as a podcast guest, and I know I'm not going to struggle to talk to you about something, because you're always either working on some artwork or some part of your life that you're documenting. I mean, I don't know whether you want to cover this, but I was going to ask you about the comments that you got and how unusual that must have been for you, based on you publishing about your diet online, and how many people. Do you want to explain what happened?
Sure. Yeah. So I what was it? I think I posted a year-long experience report of experimenting with carnivory on YouTube. So, okay, the reason I think that got so much attention is because my posting it on Instagram coincided with one of those Instagram art pages sharing one of my work, like on a drawing of mine on the same day. I think that's what happened, because otherwise, when I was posting, because I stopped doing that, by the way, I stopped posting the thumbnails on Instagram like I was doing. I deleted the ones I put up also. But anyway, so the reason I think so is because when I was posting those, they would not break 100 likes. Or comments. They would not get comments, because it's very different from the drawings that I was. That was a terrible idea. Don't do that. Okay, don't do it. But I was doing it because I'm trying to get people to watch the podcast more and my YouTube channel more and all of this stuff. But I think the reason for which that happened was because of that. One of those pages, I actually had some work with them on their online gallery for a little while there. They're not up anymore. It's a contemporary figurative. I don't remember what it's called. But they shared a drawing that I had finished recently, and then that typically would bring a degree of attention to the Instagram account, and so they saw that and they were like, and so like the post got a lot of the post got a lot of, and when I uploaded the video, it actually, I have other videos that have more views, but I was like, what the hell? And it got a lot of negative comments, and it got a lot of views, but it also got a lot of views. Not that many views. Like, I don't think it's broken 600 views, but it got like 500 views or something. And I was like, wow, that's so much. And the comments were like, give me a second. One that I thought was pretty funny. I mean, I downvoted anyway. I downvoted that anyway because I'm mature. But the comment was, becoming goth is the least worst side effect of eating of eating only meat. And I was like, yeah, that's funny. That's funny. That's cool. But I downvoted it anyway.
Yeah. I
I
downloaded all
downvoted.
of the negative ones. I just
Yeah,
went through the chart.
yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, I downvoted all the grumpy ones because it's like, why are you giving me? I mean, that that's not why. That's of course expected with anything.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I was just like, these guys are being dicks,
Yeah.
and it's like, people, whatever. And to be fair, not all of them were. There was this one lady that I was like, hey, you girl. I just went vegan and I feel so good. And I was like, all right, well, good.
If you're lucky, I
whatever.
may have downvoted that one as well, just from the tone. Just be like, no, don't like you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. For sure. Because it's like I could have been really grumpy and downvoted everyone, but I just downvoted the really grumpy people because it's like, oh my God, you need to calm down. But at the same time, there's so many factors involved in that whole social media thing. Another video that is art related, and it's thoughts on the Camille Paglia quote, and the quote is, "Art is not the servant of any ideology." That one has almost 1,000 views, and it also has a bunch of comments. And it does. I don't know how that happened. It's like I don't have like I don't have a hypothesis about it like I do for the meat video.
Yeah.
But that's cool. That's better because I mean I prefer the art stuff get attention. The other stuff is just like kind of tangential, but I prefer the art things to get attention.
I assumed it was the vegan community. When I saw it, I just thought the vegan community can be quite, reactive against any kind of animal-based diet. So I just assumed it had been put on some Reddit thread or something or whatever. I don't remember.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I mean, they definitely, I think it's more of an online thing. A lot of times I've heard commenters and stuff say that the world of online is very different from just the real world.
Oh, yeah.
And holy shit, thank God for that. Really, because if real life was the same as online, I would probably actually want to kill myself. Because it's just like, what? It's just, I don't know. Every 5 minutes, it's like, stop about this. I'm going to tell you why this is wrong, motherfucker. It's like, you need to it's like, you don't have to have an opinion about everything. Okay. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I definitely don't care for the militant vegan type stuff that leads into other stuff. Like, not only are you eating unhealthily, quote unquote, but you're also a piece of shit because you're murdering animals. You deserve to die too. And it's like, okay, I thought we were just talking about food.
Yeah.
It's colonized, it's like, oh my God.
So equality, not you.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, but really annoying.
Yeah.
It's not funny. It's funny when we're talking about it here, but it's just absolutely repulsive. I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I jumped on it when I spoke to you and typed up a message. I didn't want to stir up more, so I was trying to be conscious of the fact of writing something considered, where it wasn't just kind of like, these people don't know what they're talking about, they're a bunch of it. I didn't want to seem like I was buying into the, high school tone of some of the comments.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can relate to the fact that I have one video that's constantly churning up and doing good, but it's only one video, and it was from 2 years ago, which is frustrating because I've been trying to relive that success since. And it's a video called How to Draw Like Peter Draws. And I love that people watch that because it was, the drawing came out good. Peter Draws endorsed it, which was nice. So it all went well. But it's something where I think because that video got the most views that I've had, I don't know if you've had this. It was the first time, I've only had it once, where someone commented saying, you look like insert name of someone. And I don't know who the person is. I looked them up and I was like, yeah, it's actually, I do kind of look like them. I've never heard of them. I don't know what program they're on or whatever, but have you ever had that? Have you had someone say, you look like so-and-so? No?
No.
Because I thought that's
Oh,
such an
no.
online thing. That's literally like when you have a certain amount of views, you're bound to get someone nothing to do with anything to do with arts or the video itself. Just you look like insert, celebrity name. No.
Yeah, no, not yet. We'll see. We'll see if it happens.
I bet you'll have to
That's
Google
funny.
who it is because it's, there's more celebrities now than what I remember, when I used to be able to keep my memory kind of encapsulating every name out there. But whereas now I just think I have no idea who's that. And it wasn't even a young person. It was just some guy. I don't know. And I kind of do look vaguely like him, but I couldn't remember his name. And I thought, okay, it's harmless, but the more views I get, the more it's going to turn into random, a bit personal comments, and just kind of like,
Sure.
you should do this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much YouTube you watch, but I watch a lot of makeup tutorials, and I watch this lady that makes this, and I listen to the conversations and all this stuff. So I watch a lot of YouTube, and I often read comments. And some stuff. For example, like I love watching music videos because when I was growing up, MTV still showed music videos.
Yeah, me too.
So I used to watch lots of music videos on MTV. So I would go looking whenever if I remember a video of those times, I will go look at it at YouTube in YouTube because I just want to look at it. And then the comments are just like, yeah, my mom died at a concert and she used to listen to this thing, and it's like they're just putting this really personal that gets attention.
Yeah.
Because they get all the looks and then they get all the sad faces and they're like, oh my god, I'm sorry. Or they're like, oh my god, me too. Or this kind of stuff, and it's like I don't quite remember where I was going with that, but it's like
the YouTube comments and how they become completely inappropriate.
Just comments in general. I guess it's like there's a threshold or there's a point or whatever, or there's just people out there that think it's cool to share that information.
Yeah.
But it's so repetitive because it's like go to any video from the 80s or from 5 years before, and there's gonna be at least 10 comments like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, just like this repetition of like the same thing. They're like, how many legends are listening to this in 2024? It's like, oh my god, dude. It's like this. It's just like the comment section. Yes.
The lack of originality, isn't it? It's just people repeat the same generic, personal. Like I don't know. It's weird. I don't know if you've heard of the comedian Sean Locke. He's sadly not around anymore. He's a British comedian. Very cool, very good. You'd like him as well. Really funny. He called out once a guy from one of those singing shows. I think it's called X Factor or something. And a guy called Louis Walsh was on this panel, and Sean Locke called him out by saying, I could never be on your show. And he said, oh, why is that? And he goes, because I'm not the type of person to use personal tragedy like its qualifications. Louis Walsh's face just dropped and everyone was laughing. And I was like, I love Sean Locke. He's so good. He's so funny. But that's kind of it, isn't it? It's people use it like
yeah, for sure.
But we're now at 2 minutes left. I wish I had longer with you. But is there anything you want to promote? Anything aside from, obviously, I'm going to promote your Instagram, your podcast. Do you have a website?
I have a website. It's just first name, last name. It's GabrielaHandal.com. And you can buy drawings directly from there. And
people should, because they are fantastic. I mean, I really do think they're so well rendered and beautiful subject matter as well. Is there anything else you want to announce? Anything coming up, or is it just chugging along and keeping busy?
No, just keep watching the podcast and share it with everyone. And the Instagram is also first name, last name, Gabriela Handal. Just one word, Handal. And I think that's it. The podcast, the Instagram, the drawings. Yes.
Cool. Excellent. Well, give Gabriela your support. And to be honest, just because it helps with the algorithm, even negative comments and thumbs down on videos helps engagement. So even if you do object to anything,
it's true.
Feel free to give me a negative comment and a thumbs down and share the love with Gabriela just to support the algorithm, spreading her around. You deserve more support. I appreciate you coming on again. Lovely.
Yeah, thanks for having me.